Now, would you please help me in welcoming the conductor of the Orange County Youth Symphony Orchestra, Maestro Daniel Wachs.
Piece of music is a great way to introduce the theme of our concert today. It's called From the Depths Sound the Great Sea Gongs by New Zealand composer Gareth Farr. Now,
how dare you interfere with the natural order of things? You cannot summon the great sea to come when you call for it.
Who are you?
The Greeks call me Gaia. The Romans referred to me as Terra. The Inca Indians worshipped me as Pachamama. But I am here and now known as Mother Earth. I will allow you to call upon the four ancient elements: earth, air, water, and fire.
Musical instruments found in an orchestra such as the Orange County Youth Symphony Orchestra can create the illusion of the sounds of nature. Here, for example, is the sound of a trumpet or swan played by a brass instrument known as the trombone. Likewise, listen to the oboes, members of the woodwind family of instruments. Now use your imagination and try to figure out what sounds of nature the flutes are imitating. What do you think? What does it sound like? Very good. Oh, bees, I like that too. Birds, we'll take birds.
Each of these instruments has the potential to create one of my natural wonders. The very first piece played for you today featured drumming to imitate the crashing sound of the crashing waves and the mighty ocean. We call this family of instrument the percussion.
While the percussion family may be the loudest on stage, they are not necessarily the largest. Which family, boys and girls, is the largest family of the orchestra? Very good, that's right, the string family.
The string family is made out of such instruments as the violins, the violas, the cellos, and basses. As you can hear, music can create or imitate the world I have created and its environments. A composer from Finland named...
Erda, forgive me for interrupting you, but we should explain that a composer is the creator of a piece of music, much like a writer writes a book. Rautavaara composed our next piece, Cantus Arcticus, which translates as Song of the Arctic.
Cultures have used stories to explain some of my more fearful natural occurrences. We call these stories myths. The Native American people of the Pacific Northwest created stories to help them explain why the earth rumbled and spewed fire after experiencing the eruptions of Mount St. Helens. Early accounts of eruptions were handed down and explained through these legends, and it became part of their oral history and folklore.
While modern science has long since been able to explain and demystify certain aspects of nature and give more rational accounts of these myths, music is still used to this day to capture and record the emotional response that mankind has to natural events.
American composer Alan Havanas witnessed the eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington State in 1980. The eruption was so powerful that it blew off the top of the mountain and buried Spirit Lake in its entirety. While your science can predict much, it is no match for my power and fury when evoked. As the orchestra itself becomes a great force of nature and describes the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Certainly can make the ground rumble and quake with almost as much fury as my anger and wrath. But your music does not produce the destruction of fire.
For that, we must turn to German composer Richard Wagner, who creates fire in one of the most famous and grandiose works of theater ever written, The Ring. Now, how many of you boys and girls know the book or have seen the movie The Lord of the Rings? Very good.
Well, the mythology behind both stories is the same, except that Wagner created the most completed combination of music, words, and theater ever attempted. Wagner used what he called leitmotifs, which are musical themes associated with individual characters, places, ideas, or plot elements. For examples, here is the leitmotif for the Valkyries. And here is the leitmotif for fire.
And of course, it is the leitmotif for fire, that primal element that finally brings down Valhalla, the temple of the gods, crashing back down to earth. Many cultures believed that all things were created by a combination of four basic elements. Let's see if you can remember them. Earth, fire, air, and water, all of which we have played for you today through musical examples. The ancients, including our friends in the Pacific Northwest who turned to mythology to explain the violent eruptions of a volcano, or our Nordic ancestors, they all had one thing in common: a respect and an awe for nature's majesty and her power.
Nature's beauty is a gift to be cherished and appreciated, and not to be taken for granted. It is up to each of you to take care of my world. Let us close this morning's concert with one of the greatest musical depictions of a sunrise ever composed, The Pines of Rome. It is a misty dawn. The great Roman legion is marching towards us under a canopy of the magisterial Roman pines, under a brilliantly rising sun. They are almost here.